there's just this relationship that we really want to position ourselves as brands as being that community that really merges those two groups. Like, you guys can't live without each other. So I think on both brands, our job, we feel like, is just to empower the creative to be as good as they can possibly be, make as good a content as they can possibly make.
Welcome to Cinema 5D on the Go. Moving conversations about moving images with filmmakers and industry leaders. Brought to you by Tilta, Blackmagic Design, Manfrotto, and Olympus OMD, in association with Sony. This is your host, Nino Leitner.
The Filmsupply, right? So how did that start? Is it all? It started a little bit after Musicbed, right?
It started 5 years after Musicbed. It was something we wanted to do from the beginning, but I think we just didn't have the bandwidth to do it.
Yeah.
And so about 5 years into Musicbed, we started with basically the idea that, you know, this highly curated doesn't really exist in the stock footage world. You know, there's a bunch of stock footage sites out there, but nobody's doing it in a really cinematic, artistic storytelling kind of way. So we just started the journey of signing filmmakers and just really trying to pick, like, who are going to be the best filmmakers, the leading filmmakers over the next, you know, decade, and making sure that we really partner with them. And I think, you know, like I said earlier, I think we signed a bunch of filmmakers that, you know, it was like almost, they were like, honestly, when we think of stock footage, we kind of throw up in our mouth. You know, like, we don't want to, we don't want to have anything to do with stock, you know? And we were like, nah, we totally get it. I mean, but we're not going to be that brand. And the good thing
it's basically the same thing you do for music with Musicbed, right? So high quality, super
highly curated. You know, are you going to be able to find everything you could ever need? You know, it's no, because the catalog isn't a million clips.
Well, it can't be.
And so I think one of the things too in the industry that's shifting a lot, you know, like 20 years ago when you were making advertisements, and you were doing a corporate business ad, and you were talking about, like, making deals. It was like, well, let's get a picture of two guys shaking hands, because that's what making deals looks like. But so much of content now is moving into storytelling and imagery and analogies, and it's just like emotive things. Like we can give you the emotion of power without, like, showing a powerful business guy shaking a hand. Like, maybe, like, there's 5-6 different ways. Maybe you're showing power with, like, storms, or you're showing power with, like, there's all kinds of different like waves. And
it has also to do with the availability of, you know, like Vimeo and places like that, where suddenly you had really talented people with, you know, like young guys with DSLRs pop up doing the most amazing things, and suddenly all this stock stuff, you know, like, looked terrible. I mean, it probably looked terrible before, but it looked even more terrible after, you know, like, this sheer amount of talent was there. Because before that, I remember when I was in film school, you know, we had mini DV, and we were not able to, it was very hard to create cinematic images with camera like that. So, and it's become, I mean, the 5D and everything that came after that made it really simple.
Remember those guys?
Yeah.
That's what I was doing in high school. Yeah, I mean, it's I think on both brands, our job, we feel like, is just to empower the creative to be as good as they can possibly be, make as good a content as they can possibly make. And I think, you know, like, the untold story, I guess, of Musicbed and Filmsupply is just that there's this marriage between music and film that's really powerful, which is why we fight really for the compensation on both sides. Like, if you're a filmmaker and you're making great footage, you should be compensated for your work. I mean, you're running around with an $80,000 camera rig, you've spent 20 years perfecting this craft, and the same side on the music, you know, they're dedicating their lives to continuing to push and push and push.
The music side is probably even more difficult, because, I mean, the kind of, you know, like, price slashing that the music industry has seen over the past 15, 20 years is something that's only happening now for filmmakers because of the technology that's being cheap.
But
I mean, filmmakers, of course, have the problem that just people don't buy as much music as they used to.
I think, you know, to us, while one side of the music industry is maybe getting cheaper and CD sales are down and all these other things, it's at the same time, though, there's more videos being uploaded to YouTube every single day.
Yeah.
There's more content going out. There's more films being made. And I just think at the end of the day, filmmakers can't live without musicians, and musicians can't live without filmmakers. That's the way the industry is going. Like, if you're a musician and you're not doing sync licensing and you're not partnering with filmmakers to tell great stories, when, like, you know, my Facebook feed is becoming more and more video, and
absolutely.
it's just, you know, that's going to be media. Like, that's going to be the internet in 10 years is all video. And so I think there's just this relationship that we really want to position ourselves as brands as being that community that really merges those two groups. Like, you guys can't live without each other.
So where do you see yourself and Musicbed and Filmsupply in like 5 and 10 years from now?
I think hopefully much larger. I think that we'd like to continue to see our voice grow, being able to be an influence in the industry. You know, we want to continue to push and challenge, I think, the quality of content. You know, there's lots of things like what do we do on the film supply side with VR? I mean, that's a really big thing.
That's a good point.
You know, it's like which I think the idea of stock VR footage is weird right now, but it's going to be a thing. You know, I think on the Musicbed side, we're continuing to push on the publishing side of actually like creation. Like, one of the things we're doing this year for the first time ever is putting over $1 million in the pockets of our musicians to begin to actually fund some of their records.
Yeah,
like,
cool.
For instance, Tony Anderson, Ryan Talbert, some of these guys.
Yeah.
I mean, their dreams, just like on the filmmaking side, to continue to push. I mean, some of those guys are wanting to, you know, rent or go out and rent the best studios in Nashville and record with 150 strings players. And we want to make sure that we continue to enable our artists to go and take that next step and release the record that they've never been able to release before. And so, you know, I think there's also a big international market. The international side for us on Musicbed is growing really fast. There's indie filmmakers popping up all over the world. I mean, we have to make sure that we're paying attention to Japan and China and Korea and all these places where there's great films being made, and they need music just like everybody else needs music. And so I think there's a lot of growth for us. We just want to make sure we keep the main thing, which is making sure that we're representing the best indie, you know, musicians, both on the composer and on the band side. And that we're being a discovery source for filmmakers to find great music. So
were you the only founder of Musicbed? Or?
Nick and I both co-founded it. So Nick Carfa...
And it's still your company, if I may ask? Or?
Yeah, it's just the two of us. And cool. We haven't raised any funding.
Amazing. So you can remain independent, kind of. And you don't have the, you know, people in the background who will like make more money.
Nobody's pulling the strings. I mean, I think, you know, we try to pour as much money as we can back into the creatives. Yeah. And Nick's phenomenal. He started the company with me, and he runs all of our A&R. And so he's picking music, talking to artists, making sure that our catalog is always top notch, and has just done a really phenomenal job with that. So.
Yeah. That's cool. Amazing. So how do you feel about your competition? All these people who are, you know, giving you now like a flat fee, and then you can download as much as you want. Obviously not at a very good quality very often, but I mean, how you feeling that in terms of, you know, what people buy? Or
yeah, I mean, I guess I feel kind of like maybe McDonald's feels about Burger King.
Yeah,
you know, I don't know. I mean, we'll continue to be the leaders. I think that the subscription model I think it's dangerous for creatives, you know? I mean, I don't know. To me, I look at a wedding film and say, like when we were shooting wedding films, if I broke my 70 to 200 and I needed to go rent one at a local lens rental place, I was going to pay $65.
Yeah.
To me, $49 isn't crazy for a wedding license if you're charging a couple $1,000s. So I don't think we're in a weird price range. I think we price pretty well.
Yeah.
But again, you know, I think at the end of the day, if it's your music, do what you want to with it. You know, if you want to sell it for cheap, if you want to do a subscription model for cheap, that's fine. I think what gets dangerous is just when you're screwing the artist.
Yeah.
I think that's my only thing. Like, price it where you want to price it, but allow the people that actually made the content to get more money than you do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. That's the problem I had with, you know, like stock footage sites. It's like, I mean, the best revenue share of those big guys you could get is like 70-30 or something ridiculous.
Yeah, I think, you know, there's a couple of them that pop up. There's a couple that are like $200 a year, you know. I mean, I know from talking to them that there's 70-30, 80-20 splits in their favor.
Yeah.
I just think it's dangerous. I mean, to me, that means, you know, you get 10,000 subscribers and you're making $1.6 million a year yourself. Yeah. And you're distributing $400,000 amongst like 300,000 films. Yeah. You know, you're paying $1 or something for. Yeah. Because here's the bottom line is, it costs a lot of money to make really good music. Yep. It costs a lot of money to make great footage. Like Arri Alexas aren't cheap, you know? I mean, recording studios aren't cheap. Getting 100 strings players into a studio for 10 hours, like, it's not inexpensive. So at the end of the day, like from an economics perspective, it's like, it's good for a while.
Well, it's a good point about the strings particularly, because anything to do with classical music, as soon as there are a few people or a whole orchestra involved, you immediately hear the difference, because, you know, like, it's like MIDI programmed, the cheap stuff.
Well, and I think if our artists at some level, if they're not making enough money and they have to go take part-time jobs and they got to go work at Starbucks, then they're not going to be able to produce good music. And then ultimately, as a filmmaker, you know, then I think you complain in 5 years when there's not a bunch of great music. You know, it's to me, it's our jobs as artists to continue to fund each other. Yeah, absolutely. And make sure that we're all able to continue our craft and make great work. So I don't know. I mean, I think there's a place for them in the market, but you know, our big thing is just making sure that musicians and filmmakers get paid what they're worth. Yeah,
that's cool. Well, that's amazing, and I think that's what really differentiates you from the rest of the guys, and also the way your site works. You know, I remember when you relaunched your site, I mean, I was like, where did everything go? But it's like,
we need to probably do it again. We've got some more big updates coming. But
no, but it is cool. It's like, you know, for me, I realized it's like having a vinyl versus an MP3 in a way, also in terms of how you look at, you know, how everything is presented. And I really like the way it is presented. The music you see, even through your website, I feel like, you're really valuing the music that you represent.
No, thank you.
And it's about the band, and it's not about, you know, selling a million tracks, because you click on it, you hear there's one track, you see that, and not a million other things, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're here to give a bunch of artists a voice. Yeah. And so it's a really big deal to us that it's not Musicbed getting famous. Yeah. It's our artists getting famous. You know, egos come along with that. We get to maintain those. But I think, you know, by and large, we have an amazing group of artists that are super humble, very thankful to be in the industry that didn't exist 10 years ago. And just a bunch of guys and girls that are, man, they're doing great work, and they're just thankful. I mean, I think this is probably what doesn't get said a lot. And I don't know that filmmakers get thanked enough for the fact that there's 750 musicians that are feeding their families. Yeah. You know, it's like a lot of them don't have health insurance. You know, we get emails. It's like, I just had my third kid. I didn't, you know, I was able to pay for it all. It's like, oh wow. Okay. I think it's hard. I mean, it's not like that's not a really sexy story. You know, it's not cool or whatever. But at the end of the day, you have this group of 30,000, 40,000 filmmakers that are providing a living for 1,000 musicians.
That's amazing.
That without each other, like, it wouldn't exist. I mean, they would be substitute teaching, they would be teaching music lessons, they would be, you know, they'd be working jobs.
So do you have guys like musicians on the contract that exclusively, not only in terms of selling the music through Musicbed, but don't do anything else? You know what I mean? Do they?
Oh, a lot of them.
Really? They just produce for the platform, kind of?
Yes.
That's amazing.
I mean, we try to keep them away from producing for the platform, because that's how it turns into stock music. You know, I mean, our big thing is making sure that they're still touring.
Yeah, but that's how they earn the money. I mean,
they're pursuing music as a career. Yeah. Like, we want to tour. You know, we want to we want to record and release records. That's cool. And sync licensing is a really big part of that.
So do you meet these people in person as well?
Oh yeah, I mean, that's our favorite thing is when they're coming through Texas, through Austin or Dallas, that they're in the office and hanging out.
I'm sure.
We have a pretty good relationship with most of our artists, and get to meet them face to face, and
that's amazing.
But that's just that's like the byproduct of all of this. And I think, you know, to the subscription model, like, no artist is paying to have their baby off of a subscription model. It's not going to happen. Like, I mean, they may be able to make $500 or $600 a year, or maybe, I don't know, $1,500 a year, but they're not going to make a career out of it.
Yeah.
And when they can make a career out of it, that's when it becomes sustainable for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if you as a filmmaker could only make like $1,500 on the side as a filmmaker, you would be forced to take a job at a bank.
Yeah.
And then you wouldn't be making great films, like, you know,
Absolutely,
you wouldn't have the. So I think it's just, you know, that's the applause that the whole filmmaking community needs to hear and have, which is you've made it possible for 1,000 musicians to stay alive, to feed their families, to like actually like this dream they've had forever that wasn't a reality. You've made it a reality for them, and that to me is like, where's Musicbed in 5 years? Like, hopefully we're doing that for more musicians.
Yeah.
So.
That's amazing, and it's a great endpoint to this really cool discussion. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, man.
And
have a good one.
Yeah, thanks everybody for watching this episode of Cinema 5D on the Go. We thank all our sponsors. We thank our audience as well, of course. And tune in for the next episode of On the Go, and stay tuned for our coverage and our reviews on cinema5d.com. Thanks for watching.